So we have a little bit more information to speak about. I'll try to be fast. Okay, so foreign language proficiency. What does it mean, and what do we mean by language proficiency as a multidimensional concept? So this concept includes, firstly, a person's knowledge of the so-called objective parameters of communication and possession of these parameters. We are talking primarily about subject knowledge, conditioned by situations of communication and realized with the means of realized with the help of linguistic means. This also includes the knowledge of social relationships and the conditions for the implementation necessary for the implementation of an individual communication program. Now, secondly, the basis of language proficiency is the readiness and ability of person to analyze and evaluate communication situations, make an adequate decision regarding speech behavior, and exercise control over their speech actions and the actions of their communication partners. So these skills are based on knowledge of alternative possibilities of verbal behavior, including various parameters necessary and sufficient for analyzing the situation of communication and all its components. So thirdly, the ability to give a subjective assessment of one's own communicative potential and the ability to use variable behavioral possibilities, the adequate choice of which makes it possible to achieve the effectiveness of communication, which are essential for proficiency in a foreign language. And fourth, when discussing the essence of the concept language proficiency, one cannot but say about the importance of a person's ability to use in his own speech activity and understand when decoding the statements of other persons, decoding paralinguistic and extralinguistic elements of speech communication. So all components of the concept of foreign language proficiency can be reduced to general and communicative competence. Just a few words about the components. I know that you're a little bit tired, me too. So when speaking about components and general competence, so general competence determines the cognitive activity of a person, his ability to communicate with someone else, linguistic and ethnic culture, and to learn about it. So this type of competence includes declarative knowledge, knowledge about the word, knowledge from various fields, knowledge inherent in a specific culture or having a universal character, individual picture of the world, knowledge of the specifics of the studied language system. The second is individual psychological characteristics of a person, allowing him to carry out speech activities with varying degrees of success. For example, character traits, temperament, readiness and desire to communicate with native speaker of the language being studied, attention to communication partner to the subject of discussion. Because I know a great number of persons who possess really good English, but they're afraid to communicate. They're simply afraid not to be understood well or not to be understood in a full manner and just to make some mistakes. So that's why we're speaking about individual peculiarities of person's character. And the third, skills and abilities that provide the student with an economical, effective master of language and culture that is not native to him. The ability to learn, to work with dictionary, to learn with reference literature, with different sources, to use computer, audiovisual teaching aids, and so on. So this is about the general competence, and we have communicative competence too. We are going to speak about it too. So communicative competence is the ability of a person to understand and generate foreign language statements in a variety of socially determined situations, taking into account the linguistic and social rules that native speakers adhere to. In a generalized form, communicative competence is known to be knowledge about the system of the studied language and the skills of operating linguistic means of communication formed on their basis. So the linguistic, that is the so-called linguistic component of communicative competence. Knowledge, skills, and abilities that allow to understand and generate foreign language statements in accordance with a specific communication situation. Speech task and communicative intentions. That is a pragmatic or practical component of communicative competence. And the third one, the social linguistic component, that is knowledge, skills, and abilities that allow to carry out verbal and non-verbal communication with native speakers on the target language in accordance with the national and cultural characteristics of someone else's linguistic society. So, thus, if we take into account all the components of the concept foreign language proficiency, we can state the following. The result of teaching students non-native language cannot and should... Неужто последний? Ага, я один пропустила, just a moment. And shouldn't be reduced only to mastering linguistic competence, as well as the ability to use various forms and methods of speech activity. We're speaking about written, oral, paralinguistic, and extralinguistic activity. The object of teaching a study in the educational process is, in non-native languages, including foreign languages, is the above-mentioned set of knowledge, skills, and ability, and one of the learning outcomes is a certain level of proficiency in them. So the totality of knowledge, skills, and abilities as a result of linguistic education or language education is part of the universal human ability for verbal communication, and also has its own specificity. So what kind of specificity is it? First, it is specific that in process of mastering a non-native language, the student is introduced to new forms of expression that have their own national and cultural characteristics. Secondly, as is known, the basis of proficiency in any language is the universal ability to discuss. And this versatility is partial. So a certain set of discursive knowledge, skills, and abilities assimilated by a person as a result of communication is distinguished by cultural specificity, since any discourse is built according to the laws of a particular linguistic society. And thirdly, by mastering the language, a person learns a set of some extra-linguistic and social-linguistic knowledge, skills, and abilities that characterize a particular foreigner as a representative of a certain linguistic ethno-society. Along with this linguistic knowledge, skills, and abilities, mastering this complex is of particular importance for adequate understanding and generation of foreign language speech. So, we are going to make a pause for this week. Next week we'll be speaking about image of language and language components as components of teaching foreign language. So for now, this is all. Thank you for coming back. I promised you it would be only 10-15 minutes, no more. That's why I'm stopped the demonstration right now. Thank you. See you next week. Don't be late. And bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.